10 days before my 9th birthday, my little brother Britt died of cancer. He had just turned 6. The year was 1967. Cancer does not just affect the patient, it alters the entire family. You pray for a cure, accept experimental treatments, and cry yourself to sleep at night. My parents never used the word cancer when talking to the rest of us. He was the youngest of 4, and we had a sense of the seriousness. There was a long hospitalization after Britt's initial diagnosis, and when he came home, there was a shiny green bicycle with training wheels waiting in the living room for him. It wasn't Christmas or his birthday, but none of us questioned the correctness of this extravagance. Britt was put on chemotherapy at home. My mother tried to make it more palatable by mixing his chemo drugs with pink Pepto-Bismol and serving it to him in a pretty crystal cordial glass. The rest of us would encourage him to swallow this poisonous mix and tell him what a good boy he was when he got it all down. On Wednesdays, he had to go into New York City for the clinic. On a good clinic day, they just drew his blood and looked him over. The bad days were the bow and arrow days, when they used a 4-inch needle and syringe to check his bone marrow, or used an equally long needle to tap his spinal fluid. I remember him asking my mom, "Is it a bow and arrow day?" He was always so brave. During the school year, the rest of us children were somewhat oblivious to this process, but during that long summer of 1966, my mother had to take all 4 children to the clinic on Wednesdays. A nurse would take my mother and little brother into an examination room, while the 3 of us waited in a playroom. At the clinic, they had a beautiful toy cart covered in a lacy canopy and filled with wondrous toys. Every child at the clinic got to choose a toy when they went home. I remember a pretty nurse bringing the toy cart over to me and my healthy brother and sister and telling us to choose a toy. My mother said, "Oh no, they are for the sick children." But the nurse insisted that we should have a toy too. My mom looked at us and said in a stern voice, "A small one." There was a beautiful stuffed lamb that I wanted, but I knew that that was not a small one. I don't remember what I chose that day, but that lamb remained on the cart for several Wednesdays, and by the end of the summer, I had to have it. I defied my mother and chose the lamb. I don't remember if she was angry with me or not, but when my little brother died a few months later, I slept with that stuffed lamb, and I cried. Children have more capacity for understanding the simple truths of life than more adults. I remember my brother's best friend David, at 5 years old, outside of the church after my brother's funeral, asking his mother, "Why are you crying? Now both of my best friends are in heaven, Jesus and Britt." The sad truth is that after more than 40 years, children are still dying from cancer. And while many children with leukemia and lymphoma are cured, the rare form of cancer that my brother suffered from is still without a cure. My brother's disease and death shaped my world and gave me a deeper understanding of life than a 9-year-old should have. I grew up wanting to be a nurse, but while in college I discovered the field of cytology, the study of cells, specifically cancer cells. I have stood up to cancer ever since. I am an educator as well as a laboratorian. I have worked in hospitals, private laboratories, and universities. I have seen tremendous strides made in diagnosing and treating cancer, but we have a long way to go, and we need funds to continue the research. It is time for each and every one of us to stand up to cancer. Please donate today.